good morning, good afternoon, because I would like just to say thank you to everyone, to all our speakers, Khalid, Neil, Alok, and Dr. Ibrahim, and thanks a lot also for Kevin for moderating and sharing the session with us. Now, I'll give the speaker the floor to, don't have the floor to Kevin, who will be moderating, and I will say just thank you for everyone, and bye-bye. I will be with you offline. Thank you. Kevin, please.
Thank you. Right. Tony, I'll just change my setting here for 1 second, Tony, for you, and we'll get going. Great. Well, listen, Tony, thank you, and thanks to Telecom Review. So just to introduce myself, Kevin Vachon, the MEF COO. I've been doing this for 15 years now, overseeing all of the activities of MEF with involving the volunteers from many companies like PCCW and TELUS and Spirent and so on, as well as all of the staff and contracted professionals we have working with us. For those of you that don't know us, we're a nonprofit comprised of about 200 network technology and cloud providers. We develop services standards, certifications, and automation APIs to essentially, we're an enabler of network transformation, which, for service providers who in turn are enabling digital transformation. So we're an enabler of the journey that CSPs are on to become DSPs. That's really the main role we're playing in the industry. Of course, there's many different players in that space. Related to the two topics today, automation and Sd-Wan, we play a significant role, excuse me, in both. We established an automation framework called LSO, Lifecycle Service Orchestration, for end-to-end service automation. And also, over the last few years, we've become the kind of primary developer of Sd-Wan standards in the industry and related standards like SASE and so on and so forth. So that's MEF. And today, before I introduce the panelists, we'll just talk a little bit about the format. There were kind of two core topics, network automation and Sd-Wan. And Rock from Nokia is going to join us a little bit late. But I had a conversation with the other day, and he made a good comment. He said, automation is the forest and Sd-Wan is one of the trees. And that sort of stuck with me. So I thought, why don't we start with the forest and then we'll move to the trees and see how they kind of relate together. And he'll jump in when we can. I think, I don't think there's going to be any shortage of things to say. You guys have probably been on dozens and dozens, if not more than dozens of these virtual things over the last year or so, and have no shortage things to say on the topic. So we're going to have a few questions, for the panel, but we're really going to ask them to kind of come in and offer their perspectives on a very informal basis as we go forward. And I think we have a great substantial diversity here with the operators being represented, the technology players from different perspectives, Spirent, Nokia, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. So maybe as a start, we can have the panel introduce themselves, starting with Khalid.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all the team here on the panel. My name is Khalid Beloushi. I'm working in Etisalat in international department in technology. I've been working at Etisalat for the last 23 years. I started my job in IPs, and the last 5 years I was more focused on telco cloud and the virtualization. Our role in the group is more about synergy, strategy, and also sometimes addressing some pain point in our OpCos.
How about Neil?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Neil Templeton. I'm VP of Marketing at PCCW Global. And for the last 3 years now, I've been focused on our automation portfolio, our platform, which is called Console Connect. So I've been involved from the start of that journey through to where we are today. So I hope to share some of that with you today. It's certainly been a very, very interesting journey over the last couple of years, automating our own network.
Great, thanks. How about Alok?
Hi, thank you, Kevin. So I'm Alok Tusnial, work for Spirent, manage the cloud business for them. So I'm VP of Cloud and Solutions. among other things, actively working with MEF on Sd-Wan certifications. We did a lot of certifications last year, and we continue to do that both on the service provider side as well as on the Sd-Wan provider side. Other than that, again, bring in a whole suite of capabilities from Spirent. I've been in Spirent for about a year now. Before Spirent, I worked in the OSS BSS space. Basically, I was working for Netcracker, and before that with Amdocs. So bring in a lot of insights, and we'll be happy to share information on when we talk about automation, when we talk about SD-WAN, and how this plays out both from a test and measurement perspective as well as from OSS orchestration capabilities.
Great, thanks. And finally, Brahim, last but not least.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. It's 6:10 a.m. So my name is Brahim. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for TELUS Communications, and have basically technology development and a lot of the operations in the company. And really excited about being here with my esteemed panel, especially with Kevin moderating, right? Like this is year 6 of our launch of SD-WAN, and really great to see how that's maturing and all the stuff that MEF and Telecom review are doing for the space. So thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, well, listen, let's get started. Obviously, you know, automation is a broad topic. It's a long haul. It's a journey. So maybe we can just start by maybe I'll start with you, Khaled. You know, what do you see as being the major drivers for automation for Etisalat right now?
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Before I just give the drivers, I think let's take a look at automation and how important, how critical it is for the operators. Today, automation is not as optional as before. You know, you address a pain point in specific areas. It's more about transformation. And I think automation, along with the network virtualization, they bring a clear, important value to the operators. It's actually a complete transformation from the organizational point of view. It touches all the different stakeholders, whether it's from HR or from IT or from technology and commercial. That's why I think it needs to be handled in a very clear strategy, and also the clear demarcation with the clear standard, you know, following the standard for APIs. For each domain, you have a different let's say orchestrator. So it's you know, it's a complete strategy. It's a complete transformation. It should not be handled as a pain point for each different department that's having issue, and they start to automate. When it comes to the drivers, I think I see that there are 2 main drivers for the automation. It's the digital experience that we want to bring to our operators, and the operational efficiency. When we talk about digital experience, I think agility, faster time to market, and rapid deployment is the things that we're looking for. And I think that's why automation with the network virtualization will be able to develop those capabilities, those experience. But also, I think we need to look also at the new capabilities of the new requirement for the future networks. And I think there are areas, new capabilities that we can bring with automation and the virtualization, such as the mass customization, real-time services, and on-demand services, which I believe our customers are expecting us to provide moving forward. Going back to the operation efficiency, I think the self-healing and self-optimization is an areas that we want to focus on as automation. And I think together with AI, we should be able to have a tool that can proactively address the issues in the network before it causes actually outage or problems in the network. So I think those are 2 main areas: the digital experience and the operational efficiency. In fact, also one more point is that when it comes to efficiency, is that future network is expected to be very complex. With the introduction of the virtualization, with the number of sites of the 5G, with this network slicing that is coming. So all those features and the customization, that mass customization we're talking about, it cannot be handled with the way we are handling the network today. So automation should play a very important role in reducing this complexity.
All right, thank you. Maybe Neil, I'll ask you to jump in. I mean, you guys took a substantial leadership position when you acquired Console. and you evolved, that capability. What
Yeah,
were you seeing in the market at the time that made you take the leap?
So yeah, I mean, this is going back probably about 3 years ago now, which was the early days of network automation. And we were at that time, we were embarking on a process of doing it ourselves, and we wanted to accelerate that journey. And the drivers really for us, I mean, every business now is going through this automation journey, right? They were, outside of the carrier business, every enterprise is restructuring and automating their business processes, and embracing all of these new technologies like multi-cloud and analytics and automation and Internet of Things. And I think this automation journey at the service layer and the application layer is really only made possible by automation at the network layer. And we saw that, and we saw those drivers from our business early on. So, particularly multi-cloud, I think the whole shift to multi-cloud, we're now seeing, I think the latest count, about 80% of enterprises now are operating in that multi-cloud environment. And, if you think of our own organizations, we're all interfacing with 20 or 30 different applications that sit in the cloud. And increasingly, they are business critical applications. They're applications that people are running their business on that sit outside of the traditional network perimeter. So we've seen, a big drive from our customers to move towards that more flexible, agile, efficient network as they change and adapt their business processes. And yeah, I mean, as you were saying, Kevin, we went through that process early on. We bought Console Connect back at the end of 2018 now, and very quickly took the software and the automation platform and then applied that to PCCW Global's global network. So we've fully automated our layer 2 network, our global MPLS network, and also our IP network. And we're also plugging in our IoT network as well into that environment, so that now customers can basically use that network on demand and purchase it from as little as a day. They can set the quality of service parameters that they want. They can flex up and down. And we've pre-integrated that network environment to a big ecosystem of cloud and application providers that's growing on a daily basis. So, I mean, I think the main driver is removal of complexity. Certainly from our side of things, it's taking out the complexity, taking out the friction, and taking out the cost as well. But I think it's simply not possible to do all of these things with manual configurations anymore. You've got to automate. It's a necessity. Yeah.
And I've had numerous conversations with your CEO, of course, Mark Halpinger.
Yeah.
Particularly, he was certainly a big driver to have MEF drive to lead the area of intercarrier service automation with the Global Leaders Forum and so on and so forth. So, Alok, I know you maybe there's certainly a security component to automation that's huge for Spirent. Maybe you could sort of touch on Spirent's view on automation, where we're at, and the security element. And by the way, Rock has joined us from Nokia. Rock, we're better late than never, right?
Hi, Kevin. Sorry.
No problem
at all. I was not automated enough, but I will improve in the future.
No problem. So yeah, look, I'll let throw it over to you to kind of give us your perspectives.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. So I agree with what both Khalid and Neil said, right? From an automation perspective, automation is important, both from a self-healing perspective, as well as making it such that you remove complexity, right? But the way the networks are going, the networks are getting more complex. They're not getting less complex. And so when you remove complexity, you are building in a whole bunch of automation, which means you are building a whole bunch of configurations inside that. So question one, how do you ensure that the configurations that you're putting in and that are being driving are actually working the way they're supposed to be? The second is, if something goes wrong, how do you troubleshoot that, right? How do you identify? So the days when you've been doing passive probing, trying to figure out how your networks behave, what they're doing, that's becoming more and more challenging on how you go into that. The second is, and we'll talk more about as we go into the SD-WAN space. So things are getting more and more distributed, right? So you mentioned multi-cloud, Neil, right? People are going on multi-cloud. Multi-cloud has come down to multi-edge as well, right? So where in the old world, when you had your networks in there, and I would say it's true for all three of you, right? Whether it's Ibrahim's network or Neil, your network, or Khaled, your networks, it was still fairly centralized. Now, as you move more and more stuff into the edge, you're getting more decentralized, which means security becomes a big challenge, right? You can't put security in one point. You're not VPNing everything to a one secure place and ensuring that the traffic that goes between them is all secure. So now you're basically, and that's basically what's leading SD-WAN to move towards more SASE, adding security at the edge. But is that enough? And do we have everything in place so that you can get to the kind of security that people were used to when they were running? I mean, we've had this network running for years now, and enterprises and consumers like us, we are used to a certain level of security, right? And you VPN into your network, you VPN into your environment, you know that things are secure. With the distributed world, with more and more things moving into the edge, with the multi-cloud environment, that VPNing into a central location is no longer relevant. So how do you ensure that when you're defining your security policies, they're actually propagating everywhere, right? And you're putting it in as a point that the customers still get the same level of security, same level of efficiency. You talked about QoS, getting the same level of QoS in a distributed environment. It makes your life and our lives, everybody's life, even more challenging. That's how I look at it as the network experiences and moves forward.
Right. And Brahim, you obviously have the big picture end to end across all service areas with a very large national network. What are your thoughts?
Kevin, it's great to go last, but it's also unfortunate. I don't want to repeat what my colleagues, like starting with what Khaled said and Alok said.
You're just
It's
on
the
the
same
bottom
thing.
of the screen. That's why you went last. I just keep it simple.
I'm not. No, I think it's great, but I think Neil and like everybody mentioned the same nuances we're facing, right? Like in the old days, we would augment with people, right? Let's take that off the table in terms of cost. The issue is not even cost; it's the agility required by ourselves and our clients, which, assuming people were free, which is not the case. So I think. The key for all of us, and Alok is quite intimate with my network because as he changed jobs, he's been supporting a lot of what TELUS does on the automation. And I believe Khaled hinted at it. To be honest with you, Neil, and Neil talked about it, we can't afford not to have the agility. So forget about people being, if people cost is zero, we can't afford not to have the agility. But more importantly, I think our clients, when we talk about SD-WAN and all the modernization, they expect that frictionless automation. So if we want to put ourselves in our customers' shoes, that's something we can do with people. They don't want to talk to a TELUS person or a Vodafone person or a PCCW person. They actually want to be self-provisioning. And then we talked about the 5G world and the edge. Kevin put that on steroids with SD-WAN. People want to be able to do their own stuff, manage their own devices, be it mobile, be it fixed. And I think this is why it's a business need. We won't be able to compete with the expectations also, right? I want to add that on top of the agility and the cost savings. But I feel like I'm repeating what my esteemed colleague said. So, but I'm happy going last. I'll get another coffee. It's like 6:20.
No, I'm going to get you first on the next go around here. So just don't go away. And you know, Rock, at the beginning, we had a conversation a couple of days ago. And I mentioned when we kicked off here that I liked your comment that automation was the forest and SD-WAN is the trees. But from a technology supplier perspective, you guys kind of as we do, MEF as well. You have a view into what a lot of different service providers are doing, right? Because you're What do you see as being, the big, what are people focused on from an automation perspective right now? What's driving them? What's the hotspots?
Okay, so hi to everyone, first of all, and apologize again for joining late. So the previous speaker was not the late, it's me, it's not the latest, it's me. So I solved that problem for him. So very, very fast and talking about automation with capital letters, okay? I think that for sure there are multiple drivers, as normally is the case for many of the decisions that everyone takes, okay? Cost is one of them, no doubt. Security is another of them, because the automation avoids the human mistakes, that when you need an extreme agile network, that could be a very frequent issue. But for me, the most important point is the business impact of the automation. The capability of doing more things if you automate the network, and the capability that you can rearrange your network service capability in real time. I am a little bit exaggerating because obviously in real time, everything requires some time. But for me, the key driver for which most of the operators are looking to have the network automated is because they know that the new generation of services, not only because of the 5G, not only because of Internet of Things, not only because of the COVID, not only because of the network evolution, but all of these new type of service are requiring a further stretch on the multi-service capability in the networks. And you have to define that multi-services SLA multiple times per day. You cannot fix the service requirement of the network in 2 or 3 days. You will miss the opportunity of that service. So the automation is driven mainly for that point. Of course, again, I think it's another important point to mention the point of we are not automating the network. What we understand is the critical thing is automated the services to make sure that the provisioning, planning, commissioning, invoicing, the whole chain, the whole value chain is automated. The network for sure is the enabler, right? Without the network, nothing happens, nothing gets connected, no one gets connected. But the automation is not only regarding the platform, hardware, and software that we install. It's across the whole value chain of the service proposition from the carriers and, by the way, the enterprise. And Sd-Wan is a particular application in a particular area of the technology that facilitates several use cases that we believe are getting more traction in the latest couple of years. I want to stop here because if not, I will not stop talking. Okay.
I'll play devil's advocate here a little bit though, because on one hand, we all buy into this, this notion that automation has to happen for all of the reasons we talked about. Having said that, as most of you or all of you know, MEF is a big proponent of, we're standardizing intercarrier APIs. These are being extended to enterprise and cloud providers and so on. And when we're talking to providers that are saying, absolutely, we have to automate, sometimes they hit a wall pretty fast where, it's really difficult to get the IT resources to do that. I have a very onerous business case. We've got to wait for our next OSS BSS upgrade, and just a whole bunch of reasons. So to me, in some ways, it's slower than I think everybody would like. Do you maybe, Brahim, you could start with that to see is that sort of a day-to-day challenge you have within TELUS of just trying to make all this stuff happen? Practical issue.
I think, Kevin, the key word is like doing it by design from scratch. But when you're a 100-plus-year-old company, you don't have the luxury, right, for certain things. And we tried to move the mothership, but at least for us, what we've done is we said MPLS has got its own incremental evolution. With Sd-Wan, we actually collapsed the whole teams and build as much automation as possible. And that's where we're going with the FMO. So just like, as you're saying now, as a follow-up from what Rodrigo said, this is exactly what we're doing. We're leveraging the new technologies with a brand new kind of mode of operations, right? And I think when we claim automation, it's actually in certain market segments and in certain slivers of technology as the whole thing comes together, because there's still a lot of pieces. Like I have clients and team members who still love Cisco CLI, right? There's not much I could change, short of people retiring and dying, right? Like it's, but to be fair, on the new services, we're not giving people the option, and our clients are forcing us that way, right? So when you had the whole panel automation and SD-WAN, that's one area where people are not, we're building it from scratch where you don't have the opportunity of inserting manual labor in certain areas. And the same as Khalid mentioned, 5G NFV, and 5G is on top of that. But 4G, I think there's a bit of a disruption. So I think automation waves go with technology waves. And it's key for us as we see more and more investment in processes that we make sure we dovetail the old and the new, which is what we're doing, versus moving everything together. To be honest, Kevin, would be daunting no matter how big, how small you are.
Yeah, and I'll come back to that a little bit later, because automation now involves a much broader ecosystem than ever before. And Khaled, just maybe touch on where Etisalat is in the journey, and even comment on how you see the region, the other operators in the region, moving along at this, towards that automation goals.
So I think in Etisalat we have, as I started talking about the the virtualization strategy and how to embark on this. I think we have took a long journey. We started this maybe more than 3 to 4 years already. We built the telco cloud. There are so many services that are on the telco cloud virtualized. In addition to that, we started the automation. We have the end-to-end orchestrator, where it's also doing the service end-to-end service orchestration for so many services. It's all, I think, again, it's the orchestrator with the automation can deliver you the experience that we are looking for our customer. And can bring the benefit that we're looking for, which is the end-to-end service orchestrator, as Rocky was highlighting. So I think we have done so many work on that areas, and we have seen so many services that you can today actually can have a capability of marketplace, zero-touch provisioning. We start to see those capabilities in the network by doing so much of this virtualization and automation, and also some self-care. So we are providing this to our customer enterprise already.
Interesting. I'm just going to throw this out there. When MEF started, delivering standards for automation, so when we were very focused on connectivity services, I mean, what we more typically refer to now as underlaid services as a bundle. And then, of course, we had SD-WAN services, and now you have security. And so all of a sudden, the scope of orchestration has grown. And we did 7 live proof of concept showcases 2 months ago. And each of them ultimately showcased was very enterprise driven, leading edge applications at the edge involving AI and all sorts of things. And the complexity of the orchestration, the complexity of the automation that was being shown in these solutions was enormous. Numerous services having to be orchestrated by a variety of different stakeholders, cloud providers, other service providers, right through to the enterprise, multiple service providers around the world, and so on. And is that, just throwing that out there, it just seems that it's daunting now when you consider all of the piece parts of automation that has to happen. Even within your own network, it's substantial, but when you go beyond network to the whole ecosystem, are you seeing that there are end-to-end strategies in place to make that happen? Maybe Neil, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll take that one. And I'll also pick up on your earlier one about the challenge really for operators going through this journey, because I think we all face the same things. It's interesting. You talk about Mark Halfinger, our CEO, when we bought Console Connect 3 years ago, he said, look, as a business, I want you to integrate into Console Connect. And we were thinking, well, that's a bit bizarre. We bought this small startup software business, and he wants us to interconnect. As we're a big telco, thousands of people, we want us to interconnect into this small provider. But he was absolutely spot on, actually, because buying this small business actually changed the way that we thought about everything, and we had to restructure the whole business to fit this new model. And it's the coming together of network and infrastructure and network engineers with software developers, software engineers, and trying to get these two organizations that are both very, very good at what they do, but bringing them together as one to try and talk the same language and work together. And we adopted this scaled agile framework right across the business. Literally everybody has been through training across the business on this, and it's it's provided that common framework for us to develop services together, bringing the organization together, and it's worked very, very well. But we started off by automating our own network, and then we went through to the integration to all of the clouds. So we extended outside of the network, we integrated at the network layer and the application layer to all the major hyperscale players. So we've done that around the world now with all of the big cloud providers, so that you can provision services for a day into your AWS workload, spin up, spin down. And we're now actually taking that one step further and looking to provide the cloud services via the Console Connect platform. So the ability to actually buy your storage, compute, and services from IBM or from Google via that platform in the same environment. The next step was to integrate out to a wider ecosystem of SaaS providers, software providers. So we're rapidly building that out now. We've connected a lot of the big SaaS application providers, so you can provision service directly into those workloads, and also the internet exchanges, and we're bringing more and more of our services onto that fabric. So about a month ago, we launched our premium internet on demand service. So AS3491, our IP network, you can now buy on demand via that same interface, via the same app or via the same API. You can plug it in, the enterprise API can call our network and can spin up that as and when it uses it, and it's paid for on demand as you go. So, and we're putting more and more of those services onto that platform. So security services, Sd-Wan, mentioned we put our IoT platform now, which is this global SIM product, onto the platform as well. So it's becoming an environment for automating, not just at the network layer, but at the application layer. And I know we're also working with things like blockchain at the settlement layer as well, between quite a vast ecosystem of providers. And I think as a business, we see ourselves as an enabler for that interconnection across all of those different fabrics and providers, and trying to make it as easy as possible. There's actually changing our business model as what was primarily a network operator to now being a platform business and an open platform business, and trying to enable business over that platform. Right. It's a very different business, really.
It's just supporting what you said, Neil. I'm not the technical authority at MEF. Our CTO, Pascal Menez, is a huge believer that, and he's seeing the trend towards the integration at the portal level of cloud services and carrier or connectivity services, whatever services provided by your network, whatever they may be, as because enterprises, and we're seeing the same thing, by the way, where enterprises don't want to have 15 different portals if they're dealing with different carriers. They want APIs, and not only do they want to be able to buy, it's just basic services. They want to buy everything all the way up the stack from that portal, and that's pushed MEF more rapidly towards the enterprise-facing API development than we probably would have thought would have happened. Rock, any comments on that before we move on? And then Alok, I'll ask you as well to jump in.
Sure, I think that there was many important topics. It's always difficult to cover all of them, but I want to say regarding the automation complexity of why the automation is not that implemented, because the plane has to fly every single day, multiple times. And the time that the plane is landing is very, very small. In fact, our network is always on, working continuously. We have been facing the COVID times with increase of the traffic volumes unexpected before, with a different pattern, with a time shift. The enterprise network becomes the residential network because everyone is working or schooling from home, and the network has been on. And this is a huge demonstration of the potential of this industry, of this sector. I think that we all have to feel proud. Unfortunately, all of this evolution of the traffic has been facing a price competition, a huge. I mean, the people buy a new TV because it's flattest and nice, but they look to the dollar, the subscription fee from the broadband. Okay, and the carriers and the suppliers trying to deliver more with less, because it's unsustainable from the economical point of view. So we as a sector have to sell better our value. I think that this is the fundamental point, and automation could help us to do that, by the way. I was just trying to make a very simple visualization of what we are doing in the network today. I will not disclose when I started in the university, but I remember that when I started telecommunications, I realized that dialing in the old disk a telephone number and getting someone else at the end is a kind of miracle that we can explain in a very nice chart, but at the end it's a kind of miracle. Today, we do millions of times of bits for a single bit that we transport 20, 25 years ago.
Rock's breaking up on us, so we'll move on. Before I move on to Sd-Wan, Alok, any final thoughts on?
Most of them in the very same infrastructure with a lot of money and get challenged every single day for a single penny of increasing of the subscription to the broadband. I think that is very important to highlight. And again, the plane has to fly. And you will not automate a plane during the flight, right? You will make sure that the plane is stopped at some point before automating. So very, very big effort from the whole industry, which I believe that we have to put in value from all the angles.
Cool, thank you. So Alok, you were going to say something, and we'll jump to Sd-Wan.
Sure. So I think we are all in agreement that automation is a must, right? And especially the way things are going. And I think COVID helped accelerate all of the automation work that we're putting in. The only thing I would add to that is that it needs to be intentional in nature. What does that mean? So you can automate today in most of the telecoms or communication providers everywhere. We see automation. You're doing the automation either at the planning and engineering space or even at the operations space. But as you do the automation, you're looking at not only the sunny day scenarios, you also have to plan for rainy day scenarios, right? When things go wrong, how do you manage that? How do you handle that? How does the automation, as you put more and more logic into your automation, now you have less and less people know how the things work. So automating the troubleshooting, and Khalid mentioned, right, self-healing, it's easier said than done. So yes, you can put an orchestration layer on top of that. You can have an LSO on top, but that's not enough. You want to be able to feed enough data into there to actually stress testing and making sure that it will work no matter what the situation. Excuse me. And like Neil mentioned, right, moving from being a network provider to a platform provider. As you start becoming a platform provider, now you're more focused on providing a quality of service instead of providing connectivity to people. And as you're looking at quality of service, the customers are not interested on, oh, I have overcrowding, or this is peak period or on-peak period. You mentioned being able to provide everything on demand. When you start providing things on demand, how do you control the peaks and valleys of the stress that you will get, right? I mean, we recently had situations, right, where you had this massive attack on the Capitol in DC. And when that happened, the video traffic went through the roof, right? Everybody was basically taking videos and uploading it, and it was basically upload traffic. So when something like that happens and you've provided this on-demand capabilities, now suddenly you are going to see unprecedented traffic on your network that you were not planning for, right? And these kinds of things, how do you ensure that you basically continuously testing those, continuously staying on top of that, so that when, and that was a sad stage, but we have a similar situation when you have a Super Bowl, right? Except that you get time to plan for it. And even when you're planning for it, again, making that intentional, making sure that you've putting enough load out there, looking at different kinds of environments, and then automating for that becomes very critical as we move forward.
Thank you. Let's shift over to Sd-Wan a little bit, just to kind of kickstart this. Brahim, maybe you can comment on where you guys are on the Sd-Wan journey. You obviously, and I've worked with some of your folks, you started this a long time ago. I know it was one of your key automation initiatives as well, and doing business differently when it came to Sd-Wan, or building services differently. Maybe you can kind of talk about how that's worked out for you. what the demand looks like on the enterprise side and so on.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Kevin. I think we started with Nokia 2014, right, when it was not that sexy and popular on Nuage. But what I wanted to say, we launched in 2016, and I have to be honest, everybody thought, oh, we're going to replace MPLS. The motivation for us was to be able to mix and match network connections. Let's be like, this is the business case. And being able to go over cable or DSL or fiber, kind of redefine how business connectivity is doing. And then we added all the new software stacks on the BSS and OSS to get that automation. But initially we thought we had a 4x expectation on net subs added. And I think it took a bit of while till 2019 for the market to catch up. There was a lot of FUD by vendors who didn't have an answer. And if you look at what VMware is doing and Cisco and Nokia, I think they've actually taken it completely off the telco's shoulders. Maybe we're incapable as a community to come together, and the work we're doing is too slow. But they've actually made it completely cloud-centric. Now, the piece that they're missing is, at the end of the day, you're installing some sort of CPE. There is a requirement to touch that customer. That's why I hate the word touchless. Maybe it should be frictionless, or should be as per you see it. Because our value add over Google is we do touch the customer. They like calling us. We like responding. So just from a pure SD-WAN point of view, I think the hopes in the 2015, 2016 were not met at all. And now it's ramping up. And the beauty about COVID, as Alok, I think, mentioned, and Neil talked a bit about it, we had to actually build models and transform quickly, which is what we're doing, right? Like whatever internet connection you've got, you need your connectivity to leverage your network services, which is SD-WAN. And by the way, some vendors are making so much money interworking SD-WAN with MPLS, which is the travesty, right? I know MEF is working on a few things. Like it's just add more cost that the telcos or the customers don't want to bear, because there's nothing changing. Like I'm interworking two things that I pay for. So we need to chase that down. But have to be honest, it's really coming into its cadence now, and it's really beautiful. And you got to think of 4G back home, 5G back home as yet another link in the SD-WAN connection. The key thing is we don't need hardware-based gateways. We all have clouds, be it public, be it private, be it hybrid, and that's where we need to interwork. And I know that's what TELUS and a few others are working very closely with the NetFont, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, we're definitely not working on SD-WAN / MPLS interoperability, but we are working on the vendor interoperability at the edge. That's a big thing.
You know what I mean? Because I think today, like, so I don't want to name names with certain vendors because they're all my friends and they're my partners and suppliers.
Oh, come on, go ahead, name some names. Let's have some fun.
Well, but it's just not fun. Like I need Cisco gateways to interwork Cisco stuff with each other. If I interwork Nokia with Cisco, I need yet another set of gateways. If I interwork anything with Velo Cloud, it's a friggin' nightmare, right? Like, so if you look at the cost where you're supposed, like our customers are saying, we need something that's half the price. So by the time you add what we're doing, no matter how much we automate, it's got to be 0.5. You can't say, oh, well, the hardware is free and the software is 5x. So I think we as an industry, it behooves us to work on standards that simplifies things. So yes, it's a short-term joy that I need to buy more friggin' hardware to get the same service. But what's happening next, right?
Yeah, so that maybe this is a question for you, Neil, and it comes into the standards area. So our initial, the drivers for end-to-end service orchestration service drivers across multi-carrier environments was originally carrier Ethernet, because that was the predominant wholesale service, right? And we're seeing a huge shift quickly to the desire to automate the acquisition of last mile internet access services supporting out of footprint global and global SD-WAN solutions. Yep. And so those sorts of transactions are going through the roof, and the carrier Ethernet ones are more stable. Neil, with the platform that you have, and I know you've made some announcements around SD-WAN support from your platform. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, so I mean, we see SD-WAN as a very complementary technology, really. I mean, it's undoubtedly massive growth. If you look at the forecasts, interestingly, there's two areas of growth for enterprise networks that stand out. One is Sd-Wan, and that's what, $9 billion business in a couple of years' time by 2024. The other one, interestingly, is direct private connectivity to the cloud. You know, this direct interconnection of clouds, which you would think, well, how does that stack up, right? But I think Sd-Wan is a piece of the puzzle. It's good for some use cases. It's a great access mechanism for everybody everywhere, and connecting the branches, and it's cost effective. But as we see more and more of those business mission critical applications moving to the cloud, we're seeing more and more people want quality of service, secure, high performance connectivity to support those critical workloads. They don't want to be accessing HR records in their database over the public internet, and the public internet isn't good enough for a lot of those workloads. So for me, it's a combination of this sort of OTT SD-WAN technology that gets everybody on, and it gives you a more secure access mechanism, etc. But using that with private backbones to support performance for particular applications and to provide that direct connectivity, onwards to this wider ecosystem. So with Console Connect, we're marrying the two together. SD-WAN is very much a great access mechanism for that platform, but then we've got the ability for people to drive over the platform for their direct interconnects for particular workloads. So yeah, I think they're very complementary.
Okay, thanks. Khaled, I know you're not, SD-WAN is not part of your responsibilities at Etisalat, but is that one of the major kind of automation drivers that you're seeing, in terms of customer demand for new services that might impact your strategy, technology strategy, automation strategy? Is SD-WAN as an extension, SASE, are they big drivers that you're dealing with now?
Yeah, definitely. I think the SD-WAN has actually, even let's say that with the capability, with the enrichment it has for the automation services, it had great deal to our customers' requirement. On top of that, we also developed some zero touch provisioning, migration, ease of migration to the SD-WAN services. So all those things is actually part of our customer requirement, and we have actually developed a marketplace for this also, where the customer can also, even self-care for customer to do online requirement and change the requirement as they need to introduce new site without coming back to us. So those automation actually is a customer demand today, and we have to meet this requirement. So I think we have done that in Etisalat.
Can you deliver that when you go out of your own footprint across your partner networks, or is it more restricted to where you have footprint?
I don't think there is a stopper for having outside the footprint, right? Because the SD-WAN you can provide over the internet. But if the customer is willing to go beyond your network and with no KPI, because you cannot guarantee your KPI beyond your network, right? I can guarantee my KPIs and quality of service in my network. But if the customer is happy to introduce and to come through me, he can take my CP and go to other places and just connect back to me through SD-WAN. But the guarantee, can you guarantee the service across the other operator footprint? That's I don't think it's possible unless you have some agreement and some deals.
The agreement. Alok, any comments on?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Rock. So a couple of things, right? One of the things Ibrahim mentioned about it's not zero touch, right? You still have to deliver the CPEs. And yes, SD-WAN started picking up in 2019, and then 2020 we had COVID. The challenge is if you have to deliver CPEs when everybody is working from home, it becomes challenging, right? SD-WAN was the primary traffic that was targeted towards enterprises, right? But if everybody is no longer in the office, they're no longer in a central location, everybody's working from home, delivering CPEs becomes cost prohibitive, and that's a kicker for SD-WAN. So what we are seeing now, and thanks to the partnership that we have with MAV on the certification space, we see more and more of that, is SD-WAN providers are now trying to get CPEs that will work on the edge cloud. So instead of trying to ship the CPEs to a customer prem, you basically put it on the edge, and then you have a software agent that's running on the edge, so that you don't need to deliver a CPE to everyone. And that's, I see that more and more are getting more focused, especially look, even after COVID, we see this world. I mean, I think the world's changed forever, right? And even after COVID, I don't see 100% of the workforce going back to the way they used to work, which means SD-WAN, the way it used to work, is now a history. And you'll see more and more people trying to work things off the cloud, off the edge, not touching the homes, not having to deliver the CPEs. And we see a lot more work happening out there. And I think that's where SD-WAN, and you add security to it, and you put those security at the edge instead of trying to put it on-prem at the end. And you're basically moving towards SASE. Right, so I think SASE now starts becoming a driver for both your direct connect, Neil, that you were talking about, but also on the SD-WAN space, where it's SD-WAN off the edge and not necessarily SD-WAN off-prem. So Ibrahim, you might actually get your wish of zero-touch provisioning, where you don't touch the customer at all. You put everything on the edge and have the customer download something over the air and get the SD-WAN capabilities. And that's when you start defining your policies. Again, the challenge is, as you start looking at that, now the question comes down is, how do you separate, how do you bring in the separation? How do you bring in the multi-dimension? Because edge means you will be supporting multiple businesses, multiple customers, all from the same place. Right, so testing that, putting capabilities out there, and again being intentional about that becomes very, very, very important. And so, different way of looking at SD-WAN, different way of defining that, different way of putting things together, but it's for the better, right? And I think COVID has accelerated that push and given us a chance to truly automate it and get it to a point where we can truly get to zero touch.
I'm going to come back and comment on that in a sec. Rock, did you have something? Any comments?
Yes, I want to highlight a couple of points. Again, I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said, because I echo all the statements. For sure, the complementary aspect of SD-WAN is very important to understand. I'm sure that MPLS or traditional lease lines will remain for years, okay, for years. But still, I believe that there is a clear momentum, and all the key players in the region, we see a major focus in SD-WAN in the last 12 months, but in the last 3 years. Probably driven by the COVID, that has done more for the digital transformation of all of us than all of our marketing tries in the last 10 years, right? So I'm sure that this is a clear wave. And I agree with my predecessor that the SD-WAN will evolve, for sure will evolve, and will be even further simplified, because I'm sure that will cover more and more wide range of services. But still, for me, the key words of SD-WAN is, we can summarize in carrier class with the end user agility. Okay, so quality of service, security, capacity, reliability, that is a fundamental content of the SD-WAN. That requires a certain how to say, definition, even the CPEs. But I'm sure that with the time that will evolve, that we were talking just now, to even more simplified models. But again, I want to reinforce the key point of this quality of experience. The user experience is wide. If you don't match it, they will never trust any type of new services. And I think that SD-WAN is a good fit for the user experience of the enterprise segment that combine, as I said, the agility and the independence of the user to define their own network, and the security and the carrier class.
All right, thank you. And just building on what Lok was saying, and one of the things we're seeing is, if you take a use case where there's a DSP or a service provider that's providing services to an enterprise, and they're delivering SASE and SD-WAN and stuff like that, connectivity, whatever, cloud services. And now you're opening a branch somewhere else around the world, and you need SASE and SD-WAN at the branch. And if you want to automate, if you want to deliver that sort of end user automated experience, now you have to figure out how to buy and sell these services, right? So we're seeing, and our strategy at MEF was we started building our APIs to support inter-carrier and enterprise APIs to support certain types of services, but we've moved more rapidly towards a payload independent approach, where ultimately you could buy and sell pizzas with these APIs, because operators are going to make investments to, maybe standardize on a certain suite of APIs, and the more types of services that they can engage in commerce without having to rebuild, the better. But that's no small challenge to make all that happen on a global basis. It's not going to happen overnight, so it's certainly a journey. I'm just going to encourage anybody from the audience to, we have some time for Q&A, so if you'd like to ask a question, I'll be happy to direct it to the appropriate panelists here. We have a few more minutes, we can take some questions. While we're waiting to see if we have any, I'm just going to open the floor. Any parting finishing thoughts from all of you on the topics today? And what are maybe the takeaways you'd like to leave with the audience here? Yeah, don't everybody talk at once. Go for it, Neil. I know you were gonna start.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin.
Oh, sorry, Neil. Go ahead. I had an off-the-cuff comment, but you have something more germane. Go.
No, go for it. You first.
But all I'm saying is I think we all have technology stuff. I was going to talk about what you guys have done, Neil. Like, I think there's the notion, and Khaled alluded to it, we need to look at SLAs globally, how we maintain them in an SD-WAN world, right? Like, if you look at like Emirates is a great airline. I've taken it a few times. Or global is bigger than what they do versus the hub. Like, how do I work with a Khaled or with a Neil or with anybody else to provide SD-WAN services that would guarantee the same? And the key thing is assuming the network will not give us what we need because we don't own it. And I think that's the next layer. And I do like the exchange idea that Neil mentioned. That's where I was heading. I think we got to think a couple of steps, because I think automation is in flight. But I'm thinking back to Khaled's point, like, for us, we don't own the friggin' network, right? Like, I use my cable competitors. Like, there's certain parts of Canada that we're not the incumbent. So what can I guarantee? And it has to change. So when I get a customer saying I need 5 nines, there's no way I can give you 5 nines. I can lie, but you're not going to get 5 nines unless I have a dedicated network that I control the SLAs. So what is it that we can automate that part of the SLA, because we meet SLAs? Anyway, sorry, Neil, actually it dovetails into your exchange idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a similar topic, actually. I was going to sort of mention this one back to Kevin in terms of the next step, really. So every carrier is now automating, not just every carrier, every cloud provider. And then you've got all of these new providers that are building their own platforms that are automating other people's networks. So everybody's converging on this same space. But I think as service providers, as carriers, actually, we've got something really to bring to the table that it really adds a lot of value. And that's, our ability to deal with the end customers, those really robust global networks. But also we've acted as an interconnected community since time began, right? Carriers are interconnecting with each other. And I think the next stage is really accelerating the standardization and the APIs between carriers, both at the network level and at the application level and at the settlement level, to really drive that for all of us. And I know there's a lot of progress being made, but Kevin, I don't know whether I'm not that plugged into all of the MEF discussions. And I know we've done a lot of work with you guys, but it sounds like it's progressing quickly.
It is progressing. I kind of touched on that earlier, that there's a lot of heavy lifting, operator to operator, to go out and help them with their business cases to get the necessary resources to implement. the comment I made earlier about the fact that we're moving more towards what we call a payload independence. So you're not just buying connectivity services like Ethernet or IP or Sd-Wan, for example, internet access, that you can go to, up the stack with that is a good business case enabler. And you guys have been a leader, and I know TELUS is very active with that as well. And so we're kind of at an inflection point, because once PCCW has made the investment to implement the standard APIs, then you want to onboard as many partners as possible. So what we're seeing that kind of multiplier effect happening right now. I do have a couple of questions. One is from Jonathan from Telecom Review, and he wants to understand if any of the panelists could cite an example of the ideal marriage between traditional networks and SD-WAN. That's a pretty broad question. I know, Ibrahim, you talked.
To be honest, I'm with you. It looks like a filler question, right? They're kind of embarrassed. No audience is saying something, but we have a bunch of things in the chat. It's like kind of world peace on the SD-WAN side. No disrespect. There's a couple of detailed ones, right?
Okay, yeah. Well, he was first. Yeah. So the second one,
sorry. To Jonathan's question, about your total cost of ownership, I think. I don't know about everybody, but all enterprises are looking for a reprice, right? So we will interwork when it makes sense. Sorry, that's my 2 cents on that one.
So let's move to the second one. How this SASE-based SD-WAN would be differentiated from the current client VPN model for end users? Anybody like to take that? It's a bit technical. Okay, there's no great takers on that one. Another one, anonymous attendee, zero-touch provisioning is the essence of SD-WAN. CPE bootstrapping and downloading the image automated is a solution. Do you really believe multi-tenant virtualized SD-WAN is the right solution? How the last mile SD-WAN service and end-to-end security and SLA will be guaranteed? I think we had a discussion about the challenge of guaranteeing SLAs. So you'd like to take that, Brahim? I saw your hand go up.
Yes, I actually realized the feature exists, and I thought it was cool. I'll try it out. But I think this is a desirous state from our point of view. We have multiple customers who actually all they think about is MPLS, so you got to make it look like MPLS. But I do believe if you think of mobile edge as a convergence play between wireless wireline, not just as a 3GPP standard, then it is critical that we have a multi-tenanted edge, right? And then not everybody cares about end-to-end SLAs, to be honest. They just care about connectivity. And one of the features, as you know, in the standards are, if I'm able to prioritize on an application or stream level or QoS level, which we can today, then actually it becomes a moot point. And I only care about SLAs for stuff that actually matters. And then you can apply QoS across multiple carriers' networks, should you choose to.
Thank you.
Can I
go ahead.
Something? When
Yes,
it comes
please.
to the SD-WAN, actually in Etisalat, we have also, I just forgot to mention that we have also international part where dedicated line for business also. So we are providing SD-WAN over that. But if we go globally, I mean, you cannot connect to all the operators of the world, right? So there are limitations to that. So that will be most probably built based on the commercial demand. One more point is about zero-touch provisioning. Actually, for fact, we cannot also, do zero-touch provisioning for physical things. I mean, the line has to be extended, the CPE has to be sent, but the process, procedures, the provisioning, these things, the things that we can do as an operator.
I think that Rock, you and I were having that conversation the other day in terms of automation strategies. Is that there's certain things just not practical to automate when you get into sort of legacy gear and so on. It's going to be obsolete anyway at a certain point in time. So you focus on you leave that alone and you focus on what you can automate, right?
Yep.
We all have to balance the complexity and the time to execute of the very good ideas we have, right? Sometimes the idea is very good, but the implementation gets too complicated. And again, I repeat, the plane has to fly. You cannot stop the plane to do everything that you wish to make the plane better, right? The plane has to keep flying.
So we'll just take a final quick question here. I think we've kind of we've been around this subject for the last hour. What can be the major impact of SD-WAN and network automation combined to the digital transformation journey? So the combination of SD-WAN and automation. Any thoughts on that? I think at the end of the day, where we started, if I can take a bit of a shot at that, it's really about you have to do it. You have to deliver an end user experience. Ultimately, it's about the end user experience, right? You can't have an automation capability in your network. You can only take partial advantage of the benefits of SD-WAN. Any thoughts beyond that?
If I may, when we look at digital transformation, and I've worn many hats over the years, all right? And when you look at digital transformation, I see SD-WAN and automation as enablers for digital transformation. They're not a all-in that, okay, you do SD-WAN or you do automation and you've got your digital transformation. There's a lot that goes into digital transformation as such, but they are important enablers. And I think as we move more and more into the automation world, or I should say, as we move more and more into the cloud world, right? All these days, and Neil, you mentioned about being able to offer SaaS. I'm seeing now customers or service providers actually, or DSPs actually, talking about digital transformation. They're actually moving their network infrastructure over to the cloud, right? Especially with 5G. It's not just SaaS applications going there. I mean, when I used to think SaaS, I used to think CRM and being able to do CRM over the cloud. Now we're looking at your AMFs and your UPFs all going into the cloud. So as more and more of these things go into the cloud, and as your infrastructure is in the cloud, how do you actually provide that automation? What kind of automation you provide? How do you connect all of those? Will that connectivity now remain the same, the way you're providing MPLS today or SD-WAN today, or changes completely? Because now it's not about, if I take 5G, it's not about things coming to a central location. So just like we talked about VPN, where everything goes into a central location versus moving on the edge, your networks themselves, a 5G network themselves, is now becoming a distributed network. Right. So in that distributed environment, in that new way of working, how exactly the digital transformation happens, I think it's a journey. And SD-WAN becomes one integral part, but a small part of that digital journey as we take that. And to Khaled's point, can we today provide QoS where we don't have our own networks? I think with the APIs, the payload independent APIs that you're talking about, if we put in the right amount of SLAs on there, we put in the right amount of testing out there, make sure that we actually look at it from an end-to-end perspective, hopefully very soon we'll get an environment where maybe PCCW Global is providing the interconnectivity, TELUS is on one side of the antenna, and Etisalat is on the other side, and you can actually provide a full SLA-based SD-WAN connectivity all the way from Canada to UAE, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got SLAs across through and through. You don't have to own the network. And I think if we all work together, that day is not very far, right? We can actually achieve that.
That's certainly the vision that is driving us. So on that note, actually, I'm 45 minutes away from starting a 3-hour plenary session at MEF, our opening plenary, where we're going to be discussing all of we're not just talking about the stuff at a high level. Now it's like, what are all the 20 to 30 or 40 or 50 projects going on around this space in MEF? And so we're kicking off our working sessions for the week. So I'd like to, and if you have nothing better to do for the next 3.5 hours, you'd be more than welcome to go to our website and sign up and join us. But listen, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks to Tony and the team for inviting us. And I know we jumped around into a lot of topics, not too scripted. I appreciate how you've taken the discussion today and your contribution. So great talking to you, and look forward to staying in touch. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you to everyone. A real pleasure. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.